So, a very good afternoon to all the students present for this session on compensation and reward management. Students, yesterday we had a discussion on the principles of equity and fairness, where we have briefly discussed the basic concepts of internal equity. And we have understood that unless and until there would be internal equity, people may be demoralized, demotivated, de-ownership may be there. And there's a reason to ensure that equity, internal equity, a proper evaluation of the jobs should be there, and all those factors that comprises the job should be properly uh, assigned with certain monetary values to find out the relative worth of that particular job and to ensure the equity. In continuation with that, let us discuss and understand the different aspects of the compensation and reward management related to that equity principle itself. Now, what we need to understand, like we have discussed it in some of our previous classes, the basic concepts of motivation and its linkages with this compensation and reward management. Okay. But we need to understand one thing, that people don't live by bread and butter only. So it's the monetary compensation or monetary aspects of the compensation and reward management is not enough to motivate people. Like we discussed in the Herzberg's two-factor theory, that presence of these monetary rewards, monetary benefits can remove the level of dissatisfaction among the employees, but it may not motivate the employees. So mostly, if you want to develop that level of ownership or motivation among the employees, we have to depend on many such non-financial rewards or benefits. And nowadays, that is the reason why most of the organizations around the globe, they are focusing on the aspects of non-monetary benefits. In a common man's language, the benefits which are related to wages and salaries are called as payroll related benefits, and the benefits which is extended by the organization beyond the payroll benefits, like it's not a part of the wages and salaries, these are called as the non-payroll related benefits, additional benefits, fringe benefits. So different nomenclatures can be used for that. Now we have understood that while defining the compensation and reward aspects of the organization, there are many such exogenous factors which do have an impact. Like we do say that the public policies of the local government, we do talk of many such legal framework like enactments. We have understood how this Minimum Wages Act 1948 or the Payment of Wages Act 1936 or the Payment of Bonus Act, Equal Remuneration Act, these acts do have an impact on the determination of compensation structure. Beyond that, the demand and supply of the labor market trends are also a determinant of this compensation structure. We have also understood that compensations can also be defined as a bilaterally process through this collective bargaining, where the representative of the workers and the representative of the management, they do finalize the terms and conditions of this compensation and reward benefits. So beyond these exogenous factors, what we need to understand is that these factors may shape up the internal equity or the equitable wage structures of the organization. But beyond that, if we really want to foster the productivity of the people, then beyond these equity principles, we need to refer to the principle of fairness, where the performances of the individuals should be linked with the individual reward systems. So individuals should be paid on the basis of their productivity, their contribution towards the organization, their contribution towards the goals of the organization. Okay? So all of these things related to the concept called payment by result, PBR system, we call it that. So where the productivity of the workers are linked with their wages and salaries. So if we do consider all of these concepts together, so we come out with an insight into both the monetary aspects of the compensation and reward benefits and the non-monetary aspects of the compensation and reward benefits, fringe benefits. So today in this particular session, we'll have a deeper insight into all of these concepts. So to start with the basic concept of wages, salaries, or pay packets, we need to understand the concept of wage, the concept of salary, and what are the components. We'll understand the deeper aspects of all of those components. And when we do talk of the concept of wage or salary, we refer to the definition of this compensation, what we discussed in our previous classes. Compensation we have understood as the remuneration received by the workers for the contribution they do make, maybe in terms of physical efforts or mental efforts towards the organization, which results in the production of certain tangible goods and services. So, in a simpler sense, if we do understand, workers to contribute in terms of their physical efforts and mental efforts, and in return, whatever the financial or non financial benefits that the workers do get is called as compensation. And wages or salaries are like that only, where we understand that wages are the remuneration paid by the employer to the workers for the services that they do contribute on hourly basis, on daily basis, or on weekly basis, or fortnight basis of the employees. This is the definition given by ILO. So it is calculated, actually wages are calculated or are meant for daily wage earners. But it depends on the different kinds of practices that different organizations do have. So either the workers are paid for the hourly contribution they do make, or for the daily contribution they do make, or for the weekly or fortnight contributions they do make. Okay? So the amount that they do receive is called as a wage. But when we do talk of the salaries, again, salaries are understood as the aggregate earning of a particular worker or employee, okay, for a given period of time. And normally, when we refer the time reference, it is per annum, per month. Salaries may also be calculated like monthly basis or annum basis. But here we need to understand one of the important aspects. Now, if you do talk of the basic insights into the definitions of these wages and salaries, both are same. Wages are the remuneration received by the workers. Salaries are also the remuneration received by the employees. Now, what's the difference then? Wages are calculated on hourly basis or daily basis or weekly basis or fortnight basis, whereas salaries are calculated on monthly basis or per annum basis. Normally, the salaries are calculated per annum basis only. But one thing we need to understand that even if these wages are calculated on daily, weekly, or fortnight basis or on hourly basis, even if the salaries are calculated on annum basis, one of the important provisions of the Payment of Wages Act 1936 says, in no case the wage period should be more than a month's time. That means wage period means the time span between two successive wage payment dates. So in practice, you will see, even if the salaries are defined per annum basis, but still the salaries are paid to the employees monthly basis, because we cannot deviate the rule of paying it within a limited time span. That's the wage period. Similarly, when it comes to wages, you'll see that wages may be calculated per hour basis or per day basis, but wages can also be administered on a monthly basis. That means what? You'll see this kind of practices do happen in different sort of industries. For contractual workers, for daily wage earners, they are paid on daily basis. So they are paid on the at the end of the day's work. Somewhere I have seen, particularly this infrastructure development industries or infrastructure development organizations, they do have a pattern of making the payment on weekly basis, end of the week. Some of the mines I have seen that they do have a pattern of making the payment on fortnight basis. Even in organizations where these workers can be appointed on a contractual basis or on a permanent basis, maybe the daily wage earners, but can be paid on monthly basis also. But in any case, it cannot be extended beyond a month's time to violate the provisions of the Payment of Wages Act. So conceptually, both these wages and salaries are same, but when it comes to administration, there may be differences. So we need to understand some of the basic differences that we do have between these wages and salaries, where we can think of these wages. Wages can be administered where the output of the work can be defined, can be quantified. So these wages are normally paid to the daily wage earners carrying out certain physical work on day-to-day basis where the output is defined. But normally, salaries are paid to the executives, the technical people, the professionals, right, whose output cannot be defined on day-to-day basis, whose output is not tangible. So when it comes to salaries, it is paid to the workers or the employees where the outcome is not tangible, where we can say the wages with outcome is visible, tangible. Right? Again, when it comes to the wages, we can easily, as the outcome is visible, we can easily measure the outcome of the workers. So they are being paid with the wages. Right? And when it comes to the salaried people, the outcomes are difficult to measure in a sense that most of the outcomes they do add values to the organization. So value addition process is actually difficult to measure. And that is the reason why you'll see that these wages are administered in two different ways. One is on a time rate system, on a piece rate system. So piece rate system of the wage calculation says the rate per piece of production, rate per piece of production is calculated, and then number of pieces produced by one worker per hour basis or per day basis is being taken, multiplied with the piece rate to define the wage of that particular person per hour basis or per day basis. So this is applicable for the jobs where you quantify the outcome in terms of pieces. Okay. Most of the processes which involve manual, handmade processes. Say, still we do have some handmade paper factories, or we do have handmade agarbattis, right? So those kind of organizations can take the advantage of making the payment on the basis of pieces. Beyond that, we do have this time rate system where we are defining the total number of hours that the workers do work in the organization, and with this time study and motion study as defined by Taylor, right? So we do define the rate per hour. So the number of hours a person work multiplied by rate per hour will define the wage, or number of days a particular person has worked in the organization multiplied by multiplied by rate per day will give the wage which can be administered at the end of the month. But when it comes to salaried employees, right, the salary is always calculated on the basis of time. So the total time they do spend on the job, like in their offer letters, it is always mentioned that their duty timings, right, and number of days they need to come. So based on that only, they are paid with the salaries. Wages can be calculated on daily basis, on weekly basis, fortnight basis, lowest level, hourly basis, but can be administered on monthly basis also. But always salaries can be calculated on per annum basis, can also be administered on weekly basis or monthly basis or yearly basis, depending on that. And when we say the calculation period itself, normally the wages are calculated for a shorter span of time, so shorter wage period, and salaries are calculated for a longer wage period. That is what we need to understand. So conceptually, both wages and salaries remain same. It is the remuneration that the workers or the employees do receive for the contribution they do make towards the organization, physical effort or mental effort, right? So whatever, maybe like we discussed, all the kind of financial and financial benefits and non-financial benefits. So let us understand the basic components of these wages or salaries, right? What makes the total compensation and reward benefits for the workers itself. Now, we need to understand that these wages or salaries, they can be classified as or in two broad heads. One is a basic pay and other pay. The basic pay is taking two different components. One is a basic structure, and second one is dearness allowance. Other pay will take this variable pay. Variable pay will have all the forms of allowances, right? Incentives, bonus, stock options, stock ownerships, right? And benefits we'll discuss like leave with wages, vacation pay, pensions, insurances, provident funds, gratuity. Many such different kinds of financial and non-financial benefits are also there. We are going to discuss it in detail, right? Now, to start with, we need to understand the basic wage or basic pay component of the pay packet itself. Now, this basic wage provides that stable base to the wage structure, what we discussed it yesterday, through the process of job evaluation, through the process of job analysis. After finding out all the detailed pertinent facts of the job, we allocate monetary values, and then the course of the job is defined. So thereby, in the process, the basic component of the wages are defined for a given job. Okay? So wages are normally administered when a particular job is completed, when a particular job is done, right? So how much is the amount that the completion of job will ensure is what we call it as the basic pay or basic pay. Similarly, when we talk of this basic pay for salaried employees, right? Each and every organization, they do define their pay bands. What do you call it? The minimum basic pay, depending on the hierarchies, depending on the number of hierarchies, right? So when they carry out their job for a month or per annum basis, it is defined. So they are being paid with the minimum basic, right? But a pay band will have a minimum basic to a maximum basic, right? So as the number of years of experiences the people do have, they are being promoted or they are being given with provided with increment in the same pay band itself. Right? So this minimum level of wage is defined, or the minimum level of salary is defined, right? Which creates the base of the wage structure or salary structure we need to understand. But we need to understand one thing, that whenever we are talking of this minimum level of wage, we cannot formulate this minimum level of wage at our end. We have to take all those statutory compliances that is binding on us for defining this minimum level wage. Like we are talking of the Minimum Wages Act 1948, right? So as per the provisions of the Minimum Wages Act, government, appropriate government, from time to time, right, define or revise the minimum wages for different scheduled employments and for different skill categories of people. So when the minimum wage is defined for different skill categories and scheduled employments, organizations cannot pay less than that. In fact, it has been a mandate for the organizations not to pay less than the level of minimum wage as defined by the appropriate government, which is applicable for that particular industry. Okay. So that creates a mandate for the organizations. Similarly, sometimes we do talk of in case of certain disputes or in case of certain grievances, when the disputes are referred to the courts for adjudication, we refer to the labor courts or the industrial tribunals, maybe the national tribunals, right? So any kind of awards, if at all, is given by any of these courts, either the labor court or the industrial tribunal or national tribunal, is binding on the organizations. So they cannot pay less than that. So that will make the minimum basic wage for that. Right? Similarly, we do have these pay commissions, which are appointed by the appropriate government. You have central pay commissions, state level pay commissions, and any recommendation given by these pay commissions are to be abided by the organizations. You cannot pay less than that, right? So pay commissions are there. So we do talk of this collective bargaining as a bipartite process, where this workers representative and the management representative, they do finalize the terms and conditions of employment, right? So out of that, any such matter which can be finalized through the process of collective bargaining should be undertaken by both the parties to the bargaining process. So these are the minimum requirements that we need to undertake to finalize the minimum basic wage, which beyond which the workers cannot be paid. Okay. However, certain other considerations are also to be made. Like we need to talk of two different concepts. One is a nominal wage concept or money wage concept, and the real wage concept. Nominal wage says it is the earning of the employee in cash or in its equivalent. Right? Total earning of the employee, right, in terms of wage is called as a nominal wage or money wage. But when we to talk of this real wage, we say that is the money wage discounted by the cost of living index, or that denote the purchasing power of the wages. Means what? So whatever I am getting is maybe, I do have a comfortable lifestyle over there, but the purchasing power of the money is also a matter to be taken into consideration, like with the growth of the inflations, right? Increasing price index, cost of living index. So gradually, the monetary values, the money value of the wages goes down. So that is what we call it as a real wage. So this nominal money wage is what actually we do receive, but real wage is the same amount how much we can purchase. So these are the things that we need to take into consideration for defining the minimum level of wage. However, when we talk of this minimum level of wage, as I said, that appropriate government from time to time define or revise the minimum level of wage. But this minimum level of wage is now based on certain aspects of the job, certain aspects of the individuals. Like we to talk of the degree of the skill that the workers do have, or maybe the strain of the work, what is the pressure that is being undertaken by the worker itself during its work, experiences, training requirements, responsibilities undertaken by the worker, right? The mental and physical requirements, disagreeableness of the task, hazard processes involved in the work, or maybe the fatigue involved. So people, working in very hazardous processes, very dangerous processes, like people working in a heavily noised area in a plant manufacturing process, right? People working with, this fertilizer manufacturing processes, where they do work with a heavy threat of dealing with concentrated sulfuric acids, nitric acids, hydrochloric acids. They have to deal with the most dangerous, ammonia gases, which is otherwise called as a coolant gas also. So people working in blast furnaces work with a temperature of some 1500, 1600 degrees centigrade inside the blast furnace. Outside temperature, you can think of that. So all of these are the risks that are there, hazards which are there. Hazardous processes like some people who work in a cement factory or in a glass factory, they always do have the exposure to some of the occupational diseases like silicosis, asbestosis. These are some of the common occupational diseases for those kind of industries. Right? So knowing that they are going to have these kind of diseases in forthcoming days or in future days, why should the people do work? So that is the reason why even if we do define this minimum level of wage, but there are differences in terms of all of these factors. So even in the official gazette, government notifies the minimum level of wage for different skill categories. Unskilled workers, semi-skilled workers, skilled workers, highly skilled workers. All of these workers in different skill category, their minimum level of payments are different. Minimum wages are different. So those kind of things should be taken into consideration for defining the minimum level of wage from time to time. So I believe the concept of wage has been clarified, right? So understand one thing, that wages and salaries are same conceptually. It's a remuneration that the workers do receive for their contribution towards the organization, right? And the physical and mental efforts they do contribute. So it may include all the forms of financial and non-financial benefit. Wages and salaries are like the same. It is administered in different ways only. Now, one of the other component of the basic wage is this dearness allowances. Dearness allowances, otherwise called as Mahungai Bhatta. This is an allowance which are paid to the employees, which will enable them to cope with the changing or increasing cost of living index. So, increasing dearnesses of essential commodities. We do talk of these employees, wage earners, to cope with the effect of this price rise. Now, why we do talk of this dearness allowances to be implemented over there? Or what is the reason of taking this dearness allowance as a part of the basic pay or basic wage? Now we need to talk of the wage fixation criteria or salary fixation criteria. Now these pay commissions appointed by the respective state governments or central governments, on an average, it is observed that these pay commissions are appointed once in a 10-year time, once in a decade, right? And once in a span of 10 years. Minimum Wages Act provides that the revision of these wages should be there as and when required, but not exceeding a period of 5 years. So either these wages are revised, if it is coming under the wage, like the Minimum Wages Act, it is revised within a span of 5 years. If these pay commissions are there, it is revised once in 10 years time. But within that time span of 5 years or 10 years, do the commodity price remain same? No. With the application of this, inflation theory, there is a constant rise in the price of the commodities. So the kind of the concept we were talking of, real money, monetary value, the purchasing power of the money gradually goes down. So how the workers will cope with that? How the employees will cope with that? Right? So to enable the employees or the workers to cope with the inflation, to cope with the increasing price index, increasing the cost of living index, this dearness allowance is provided. Assuming that the basic wage remaining constant for till it is revised, there are frequent revisions in the dearness allowance and in common once in a 6 months time, so that the people can cope with the increasing cost of living index. These dearness allowances are based on this index factor, time factor, point factor. Like we do talk of the calculation of this dearness allowances, which is based on all India consumer price index, wholesale price index, you know, retailers price index, cost of living index. All of those things are to be considered for defining the dearness allowance. We do talk of this times factor with the elapse of time. What is the purchasing power of, what is the impact on the purchasing power of the money, right? So point factor like that only. We need to talk of this dearness allowances are provided or are being taken as a part of the basic pay to ensure that the workers do cope with the changing price index, cost of living index. So it is taken as a part of the basic pay. So under basic pay, we have understood that it is basic structure, wage structure, minimum wage structure, or minimum salary structure, which is defined. Then dearness allowance to cope with the changing cost of living index, right? Price index. Under other pay, we discussed that there are certain variable pays and benefits. Variable pay included all those allowances, incentives, bonus, right? Now, whenever we talk of these allowances, we say that these allowances are a part of the pay packet which includes an additional benefit, mostly in terms of monetary benefit, right? But sometimes it is also administered as a kind benefit, right? In addition to their normal wages and salaries, whatever they do receive, right, as an additional benefit to cope with different aspects of the life, that is referred as allowances. So different organizations, they do have different sort of policies for the administration of these allowances. And if you like kind of allowances which are administered by the organizations, we will start making a list of that. Maybe you'll come out with many 30, 40, 50 kind of different sort of allowances are being administered by the organizations nowadays. However, some of the common allowances that these organizations do administer nowadays is like one is house rent allowance. One thing I would like to say that these allowances can be calculated as a part of the basic pay. So these allowances may be defined in terms of certain percentage value of the basic pay, or some of the allowances can also be defined as a lump sum, right? In a lump sum, certain referring to certain amount of money, right? So house rent allowances, different sort of house rent allowances are being provided. Maybe organizational policy do refer to that. And we do have house rents for lower executives, for higher executives, mid executives. Different sort of house rent can be administered, right? So where the organizations do have housing facilities, they do charge a very nominal amount. They provide these house rent allowances, but charge a very nominal amount as rent from the employees. And where they don't have housing benefits, so they need to provide all these house rents to the employees. Similarly, we do talk of fuel allowances, travel allowances, food allowances. Many such different kinds of allowances can be there. Now, another one is this medical allowances. So mostly medical allowances are administered as a reimbursed allowance. Right? So maximum amount is fixed, say per month 3,000. So what is required is that whenever you are going for any kind of treatment, you need to produce the bills of that treatment up to 3,000 rupees per month, and those things can be reimbursed in your salary, right? So like that only it can be there. Some of the other incentive allowances which are administered, one of the basic allowances is like to say city compensatory allowance. This is one of the major ingredients of the pay packages nowadays, because different cities where these organizations do have their setups or establishments, so they do have different cost of living index. Right? Maybe the same organization operating in Chandigarh or Bangalore or Chennai or Bhubaneswar will pay different amount to their employees. Maybe their basic salary remaining same, there will be a change in the CT compensatory allowance. which is based on the cost of living index of that particular city. So the cost of living index of Bhubaneswar may be lower than other cities as compared to Chennai or Bangalore, something like that. Right? So people working for the same organization in Bhubaneswar and same organization in somewhere in Bangalore will have different pay packages based on these only city compensatory allowance. Sometimes people do hesitate to move to remote areas to work for, no, rural areas to work for. So what can be done then? So that is the reason some additional benefits are given, remote area allowances or rural area allowances, which will motivate them to go to those remote areas. Otherwise, why people will prefer to, you know, uh, to be deprived of all those basic facilities of life, right? So different sort of allowances are administered to help the individual employees to cope with the requirements, right? So it can be administered as a percentage to the basic pay, or it's a fixed amount, say fuel expenditures. Look, 500 rupees, 1000 rupees per month as fuel expenditures. That is fixed, right? Or these allowances can also be administered as reimbursed as per the actuals. Can be there. So different organizations do have different kind of practices for that. Allowances we do talk of. Then we do talk of this PBR system, payment by result system, or the incentive administration. Incentives normally, like the basic concept of wage, a fair day's remuneration for a fair day's work. That is what the base of this administration of incentives. What it says that a method of payment for work on acceptable quality produced over and above a specified quantity or standard, right? So PBR says direct linking of workers' earnings to measure of their performances. Now, what happens? No, we discussed that the entire concept of wages and salaries should be based on principle of equity and principle of fairness. The principle of equity says all the people who are in the same pay band or same level of the organizational hierarchy, they should be paid equally. But principle of fairness says it has to be based on the contributions made by individual employees. Isn't it? It has to be based on the contributions made by individual employees. So the person who is contributing more should be paid more. The person who is contributing less should be paid less. And that is what is required to be included there in the compensation and reward management system at the present time. Right? So this PBS system, payment by result system, has been introduced to ensure that. Okay? So payment by this PBS system can be administered as a part of their accountability and their performances. Right? Two dimensions are there. To what extent the individual employee is accountable for his job, and to what extent he has accomplished his target or goal in the job. So two dimensions, accountability and performances, are there, right? But these incentives can be administered at an individual level, or can be administered at group level, or can be administered at the enterprise level. Right? That means what? Incentives can be customized as per the requirement of the organization. Right? We talk of certain individual incentive plans, later on, of course, group incentive plans or enterprise related incentive plans, which can really help the individual employees to, to be motivated. So these are additional benefits. So the more you can work beyond your contribution, beyond the set standards, normal standards, you can earn more. Right? So most of the jobs nowadays, they are based on the concept of PBR, right? Even by result. So incentives can be administered beyond this normal wages and salaries, right? And particularly when we talk of this managerial incentives, managerial incentives. We do say it's commission on percentage of profit. So uh, we'll discuss that later on. Like irrespective of your organization's performance, you have to administer bonus, profit sharing schemes, right? So managers are, you know, confronted with this profit sharing scheme of the organization. So sometimes it happens that instead of sharing the monetary values, organizations issue these shares at a very concessional rate to the managers, like to the executives itself. So that is what we call it as the concept of ESOPs, employee stock option plans, employee stock ownership plans. It has got different sort of applications of its own. Different organizations may have different policies related to that. Some of the organizations they call it as restricted stock option plans, but they don't want to extend the entire offer for all the employees, but only to the key employees. Next. So there are policies related to that, but ESOP is a concept where instead of giving certain monetary benefit to the employees, company shares are issued in the name of the employees. That means what? Now the worker will get a benefit. No, will get a thought of being the owner of the organization. So to develop this sense of ownership, belongingness, this is a very good strategy. But to talk of any kind of bonus which are to be administered, right? Maybe discount coupons, holidays, etc., etc. We'll see all of them. They do come out with that, right? And in the process, sorry, and in the process, we'll say that we do come out with the administration of statutory bonus. The Payment of Bonus Act 1965 ensures that organizations, irrespective of profit or loss, they need to administer a bonus ranging from 8.33% to 20% of their annual basis. So it has been mandated by the law. So giving a liberty to the newly established organizations up to a span of 6 years or the year till which they do make the profit. Otherwise, the rest of the organizations, they are bound to give bonus to their workers. So depending on the performances, there are ways of calculating the amount which can be given to the workers as the bonus. Right? We do say that calculation of this bonus amount, some of the terminologies that we can refer it later on, like the available surplus, allocable surplus, the process of setting on and setting off related to this payment of bonus or related to the Payment of Bonus Act 1965. All of those things are to be taken into consideration. Right? So it's a part of the profit sharing scheme. So this group incentive schemes or individual incentive schemes or the statutory bonuses can be a part of the profit sharing scheme of the organization, right? But beyond that, so we have understood that these pay structures comprises of a basic pay, of basic wage structure, then dearness allowance is also taken as a part of the basic pay. Right? And in other pay, we discuss that there are additional benefits, mostly monetary benefits, right? Through allowances, through incentives, through bonuses, or may be through the ESOPs, employee stock option plans, employee stock ownership plans, restricted stock option, restricted stock ownership, whatever it may be. You can think of the nomenclature related to that, right? So beyond that, as I was telling you, that nowadays this non-payroll related expenditures are more than the payroll related expenditures. Right? That means what? The amount of money that the organization spends on wages and salaries or administration of wages and salaries, beyond that, a huge amount of money is invested in providing different benefits to the employees. What's the reason? We have understood it in our previous classes. Reason is the challenge of acquiring good manpower, utilizing them, motivating them, retaining them. So acquiring good manpower and retaining them is the biggest challenge for the organizations. Yeah. So we have understood that one thing, money can help the individual employees to remove the level of dissatisfaction as a part of the lower order need. But what can make the people satisfied as a place of work when they fulfill their higher order needs? Higher order needs are like esteem and actualization needs, right? People, Husband's two-factor theory. People not provided with the basic amount are dissatisfied. But to make the people motivated, you need to think of providing them additional benefits, right? So fringe benefits are administered at the level of the organization to ensure that organizations do accomplish their basic objective of procuring manpower, utilizing them, motivating them, and retaining them. These are the four such important aspects of the organizations that they need to maintain, right? So there's a reason why nowadays the thrust is given on the administration of these fringe benefits. So when we talk of these fringe benefits itself, we say that these are the additional benefits, extra benefits provided to the employee, right? In addition to their compensation or wages and salaries. So we say that the benefits which are provided by the employer for the benefit of the employees and which are not in the form of the wages and salaries or any time related payment is called as fringe benefit. So anything which is not a part of the wages and salaries, right, can be called as a fringe benefit. Yeah. And ILO, what a difference, that wages are often augmented with special cash benefits or by the provisions of medical and other services or by payments in kinds that form a part of the wage for expenditure on their goods and services, right? So what we need to understand is that any additional benefit which is being provided by the employer to the employee, not in form of the wages and salaries, not in form of any such time-related payment, is called as the fringe benefits, right? So, additional benefits, when we talk of that. So, let us now understand what sort of additional benefits are normally administered in the organization, right? So, we have got certain categorization of these benefits, right? One is this paternalistic or humanistic consideration. Humanistic consideration, paternalistic means we do talk of this benevolent style of management where we take care of the employees as our own kids. Right? So it is a major responsibility for me that I should take care of my employees, whoever are there. So when I'm thinking of taking care of my employees, I'm thinking of maintaining a very healthy hygiene workplace, right? Where the degree of illnesses will be very less. Right? So for that, I need to focus on providing the basic infrastructural facilities, which will make the workplaces safe, right? Or I can think of providing them with certain health, education, housing, recreational facilities, right? So you'll see that some of the organizations, they do have their own dispensaries where each and every worker can have free treatment. They appoint doctors, they appoint staff nurses, they appoint paramedical staffs, and all of them are the employees of the organization, whereby you can see that the health of the workers are maintained. Sometimes if they do not have the basic health provisions, nowadays these organizations they get tie-ups with other corporate organizations, corporate hospitals to provide best of the best facilities to their employees, services to their employees, right? Doctors do visit, regular checkups. These are the things which are being taken by the organizations. Similarly, education, because nowadays, most of the organizations they deal with qualified labor forces, but still there are certain people or workers in the organization whose literacy ratio is very less. So sometimes organizations do provide them, certain basic aspects of their education. Okay. So sometimes they organize these evening or night schools. Like workers, they work in the daytime and can have their reading at the night time. Okay. Sometimes these organizations do have good schools for the kids of the employees. They do take care of the kids of the employees. Sometimes these organizations do have tie-ups with different kind of schools. So these are additional benefits what organizations are getting. Housing facilities on organizations, uh, focusing nowadays more on these recreational facilities, clubhouses, right? So may it happen that the organizations will have clubhouses differently for executives and non-executives. They may have a single clubhouse, right? All of those things can be there as a part of the paternalistic or humanistic consideration. Second aspect, it says statutory requirement. Statutory requirements means anything that is prescribed under any act or law. We have to you know, uh, ensure that those provisions are being followed in the organization. Say, you're talking of additional benefits such as canteen. These are a part of the Factories Act 1948. It says that in any such organization where 250 and more workers are working, the canteen facility should be provided. Must. Canteen should be provided where 250 or more employees are working. Similarly, in any such plant where 150 workers are working, there has to be a rest set, lunch room. In any such organization where 30 or more women employees are there, a crèche is mandatory for them. Similarly, we do have Maternity Benefit Act, right? So it's as per the provisions of the Maternity Benefit Act, all the female employees should get this maternity benefit. Some of the organizations, like in India, even if we don't have a law, but some of the organizations they have started providing these paternity benefits also. They have started developing their provisions for that. So these are the things which actually is an addition to their wages and salaries, but it's a part of the entire compensation process. We will talk of the concern of the organization for social security. So we need to understand the concept of social security and social insurances, social assistance and social insurances. Social assistance is applicable for all those workers who cannot protect their own lives. Right? The minimum basic level of wage, if they are getting less than that, then it is applicable. Social insurances, so the concept of insurances are like a tripartite process, tripartite function, right? Where the contribution is made by the employee, by the employer, and the government. Right? We talk of this provident funds. There's a part of the social security which is a contributory fund of these employees and employers. 12% is contributed from the employees and another 12% is contributed by the employer, out of which 8.33% goes to the pension scheme. Why the benefit is there? Benefit is to take care of yourself during your old age days, right? When you lose your employability. We talk of gratuity. So if you're working in any organization for a prolonged period of time and all of a sudden, you have, for any reason, right, you're leaving the organization. So who will take care of that? So you're eligible if you have worked for 5 years in that organization, so you're eligible to receive your gratuity payment, which is calculated like 15 days for each completed year of service. So you're getting certain amount of money. Pension schemes are there, right? Housing schemes, Medicare after retirement, right? All of these are a part of the social security related benefits that the organizations do provide. Similarly, when we talk of this hazardous industrial life, right? Hospitals, dispensaries, Medicare, all of these things. No? It has been mentioned, like as a part of the statutory requirement. I was telling you, right? It has been mentioned that in a factory setup where 150 workers are there, it, a kit, right? What do you call it as a first aid kit? And proper tools, proper first aid equipments, right? Has to be there. For each and every 150 workers, there has to be a first aid process. Similarly, in any organization where 500 employees are working or more than 500 employees are there, an ambulance room is must with all prescribed doctors, staff nurses, paramedical staff circulated. And organizations are bound to pay that. So coming out with these hazardous processes to deal with any kind of situations, right? Similarly, nowadays organizations are taking care of the taxes of individuals, right? So what can be done so that the individuals will come out with less burden on taxes? So that the reason why these house rent allowances, medical allowances, where these employees can really get some tax benefits are being taken as a part of the payment system, right? So instead of directly making a payment nowadays, organizations to think of providing them food coupons, grocery coupons, memberships, all of those things, right? So taking wherever the employees can get a really benefit of tax, right? Beyond that, to talk of utilization of this leisure time, of course, to uh, you know help the individual employees to overcome their day-to-day stress, right? The employees are provided with paid leaves, right? Leave travel facilities. What do you call it? A leave LTC or LTA, leave travel allowances or leave travel concessions, right? So workers are allowed to travel with their family members to certain destinations, absolutely free of cost, which can be reimbursed. Right? Sometimes organizations do also have their own holiday homes, which is absolutely free. They have different holiday homes at different destinations spread across the country, right? Besides, they need to think of these foreign trips, right? So these are the additional benefits. We do talk of inculcating this sense of involvement. Most of the time, companies do provide uniform, clothes, shoes, tie pins, watches, right? Concessional rate, concessional food in the canteen, picnic parties, all of them, right? So even caps, goggles with their company's logo, which can really develop that sense of ownership. And to talk of this competitive considerations, competitive considerations is what if I don't provide that, then employees may leave my organization to join other organizations. Anyhow, I have to retain them. So what they do? They develop townships, right? They reimburse the educational expenses of the children. They sponsor the children to go for higher education, right? Self-lease houses, membership of clubs, professional associations, right? All of these. Sometimes, organizations also provide these facilities to buy back their own, stuff in the organizations. So these are the additional benefits, non-payroll related benefits, which cost more than the payroll related benefits, but are administered to retain the manpower. So we have got a depth understanding of the different concepts of these wages and salaries. Let us wind it over here, and we'll discuss it, the further aspects of the external equity. We'll discuss it tomorrow, next class, right, day after tomorrow. So thank you very much. Have a good day.